Mental imagery from odysseyofthesoul.com. Dr. Guang Yi of the Cleveland Clinic Foundation in 2003 officially proved that you can build bigger muscles just by thinking about using them in a study presented to the Society of Neuroscience. In the study, 30 adults spent 15 minutes a day visualizing exercising the little finger. All increased the strength of the pinky by 35% and buffed up the muscle around the elbow by 13%. In a second study, 10 adults aged 20 to 35 imagined flexing one of their biceps as hard as possible in training sessions 5 times a week. Electrical impulses at the motor neurons of their arm muscles were monitored to make sure that they were not unintentionally tensing. After a few weeks, their biceps showed 13.5% increase in strength and maintained that gain for 3 weeks after training stopped. You can read more about this on The Art of Mental Gymnastics that will be linked in the description box. Section 2. Placebos. Patients in clinical studies often feel relief even when they're given placebos, pills that do not contain medication. The cause, doctors think, is the power of the mind to influence the body. Scientists at the University of British Columbia report that Parkinson's patients taking a placebo had an increase in the release of dopamine in the parts of the brain that are damaged by the disease, equal to the actual drugs used to accomplish the same thing. And now we will discuss a story on Major James Nesmith. He was a prisoner of war in North Vietnam for 7 years. He was imprisoned in a cage 4.5 feet high and 5 feet long. He saw no one, talked to no one, and had no physical activity. During the first few months, he slept, he hoped, and he prayed. He realized that he had to find something to occupy his mind or lose his sanity and probably his life. In his mind, he selected a favorite golf course and started to play golf. He played a full 18 holes every single day. He imagined and strove to feel everything to the last detail. He saw himself dressed in his golfing clothes. He smelled the fragrance of the trees and the freshly trimmed grass. He experienced different weather conditions and seasons: windy days, overcast days, sunny days, even rainy days. In his imagination, trees, blades of grass, singing birds, scampering squirrels, and the lay of the golf course became totally real. He felt the grip of the club, instructed himself as he practiced smoothing out his downswing and the follow-through of his shot. He watched the ball arc down the exact center of the fairway, bounce a couple times, roll to the exact spot he selected. He imagined and felt every step as he walked to the ball. Took him just as long in imaginary time to play 18 holes as it would have taken in reality. Not a detail was omitted. Not once did he ever miss a shot, never hook or a slice, never miss a putt. 7 days a week he did this for 4 hours a day, 18 holes for 7 years. The first time he was actually released from prison and stepped on a golf course after his release and played 18 holes, he had improved his game by 20 strokes. He shot a 74. You don't have to be someone who knows golf to know that this is almost an impossible feat, but he did it solely through the use of his imagination. Next chapter, mental practice. Les Cunningham of Hypnosport wrote that a number of studies have shown that a mental rehearsal of an upcoming performance can improve the eventual performance. 2 examples are Study 1. The Australian psychologist Adam Richardson tested 3 groups of basketball players on their ability to make free throws. Then, over the next 20 days, each group was subjected to the following routine. Group A engaged in no practice whatsoever. Group B practiced free throws for 20 minutes each day. Group C spent 20 minutes each day simply imagining that they were throwing the ball at the basket. After 20 days, Group A showed no improvement in their ability. Group B improved their scoring rate by 24%, and Group C improved their scoring ability by 23%. Study 2. In this study, Group A practiced throwing darts for 10 days. Group B sat in front of the dartboard and imagined throwing darts for 10 days. And Group A and B improved equally in their dart throwing skills. In both studies, the subjects had a clear idea of what they wanted to achieve, and they simply imagined themselves mobilizing their bodies in the direction of that goal. Next chapter: effortlessness and mental imagery. Constant effort does not yield the best results. 2 studies of athletic performance validate this. In one study, a group of Soviet athletes were brought together and divided into 4 groups. One group spent time training for their sport. Group 2 was asked to train only 25% of the time and spent the other 75% visualizing the precise movements and outcomes that they wanted in their performance. The third group spent half their time in training and half in visualizing. The fourth group spent 75% in training and 25% in visualization. At the 1980 Winter Games in Lake Placid, New York, the group that excelled was the group that spent the highest amount of time in visualization. The lowest improvement was among those who spent all their time in training. In each case, the group with the higher visualization periods did better than the other groups. In a Canyon Ranch Health Resort study, exercisers who listened to guided imagery tapes, also known as mental imagery tapes, hypnosis tapes, or visualization tapes, lost twice as much weight as those who didn't. Note: image or imagine also how you will slim your body, how you will exercise, how you would deal with the overeating urges, how you would deal with compliments from well-meaning individuals, and leering looks or sexual come-ons. Imagine how you will deal with and decrease stress, what foods you will and will not eat, how much you will eat at a sitting, and how often you will eat. Most bodies need at least 3 hours between meals to digest and metabolize food properly. When doing mental imagery, remove distractions. Close your eyes and focus on what you are imagining. Next chapter: reverse aging. This was a 1979 research study by Ellen Langers, a PhD professor of psychology at Harvard University. Subjects of 75 years of age or older were given a battery of tests to measure posture, physical strength, manual dexterity, perceptual cognition, IQ, a short-term memory, hearing, sight, taste, and finger length. Fingers get shorter as a person ages. One of the ways of determining the age of a person at death from a skeleton is to measure finger length. In this study, the control group was put in a resort for 10 days with normal resort activities, and the test group was put in a resort for 10 days, and everything in the resort was set up to be 20 years earlier. Television shows from 1959, magazines and newspapers from 1959, movies from 1959. Men wore resort clothes from 1959 as well. They were told to converse as though it was 1959, discussing the events of the day as though it were back in 1959. So what happened after 10 days? For the control group, people picked randomly were shown pictures taken of the men before their 10 days at the resort and after 10 days at the resort. People guessed before and after ages as the same. For the test group, random people judged after pictures as 3 years younger. For the control group, when it came to physical results, some improvement in some areas, though half of them declined IQ tests. and the finger length remained the same. For the test group, significant improvement in all areas were recorded, including IQ, which was a surprise, as before this it was thought that IQ could not increase after adulthood. The biggest surprise of all, their fingers lengthened. Next chapter, Anne Ninon de Enclos, a French name. She was the owner of a 17th century Paris salon famous throughout Europe. She was renowned for her accomplishments in music, literature, lovemaking, and influential friends. She became more renowned for her ability to avoid aging. When she was age 80, two young noblemen fought a duel over her favors. When she died at age 85, all of Paris was shocked to discover that her skin, sans makeup, was as young and unwrinkled as a young woman's. Her housekeeper and maids were grilled mercilessly in trying to discover her secret. The most that could be ascertained was that Ninon spent time every day sequestered alone in her room, where she would exercise her face and her youth. She had often remarked she did not believe in aging and vowed that she would not, and indeed she did not, as verified in numerous public and church documents on file in Paris to this day. Now, the importance of such information is to get your disbelieving conscious beliefs out of the way so your subconscious can do its thing. The key, you will note as you read the information above, is in the detail and the time. One must put in the time for physical changes. 2 minutes of mental imaging will not do it if you want physical changes. By detail, we mean imagining yourself doing what you would need to do to improve a skill, a muscle, or your youth, etc., as well as the desired result. I have a client whose brainstem she and I accidentally changed. I say accidentally because we thought I was just giving her suggestions that after her operation at Johns Hopkins Medical Center to correct her brainstem, which was pressing on her spinal cord, that her brain would be perfect. With this thought in mind, for several weeks, I would suggest as part of her induction into hypnosis that her brainstem was perfect. Our thinking also being a perfect thought form of her brainstem would help her surgeon do the operation perfectly. When she got to Johns Hopkins in Maryland, she had a pre-operation x-ray taken. Guess what? You guessed it, her brainstem was perfect. As the surgeon removed the old x-rays sent to him by UCLA, which referred her, and the new ones, he kept shaking his head, muttering, "This cannot be right. These things don't change on their own." Now that's true. Suggestion, which triggers mental imagery, did it. Now I'm convinced that if she and I had thought that we were trying to change the brainstem ourselves, it would not have happened. Our conscious disbelief would have interfered. We accidentally got around that by placing our faith in the thought, of course her brainstem would be perfect. She was going to Johns Hopkins to take care of it. The same woman asked me to ask the Master of Spirit, the higher spirit, the divine source, if plastic surgery with her nose would interfere with all the great healing work that we'd done, because we'd also healed her nerves and muscles too. The Master of Spirit said to me, "Isn't this the young woman who changed her brainstem and fingers by her own mental efforts?" When I replied yes, the Master of Spirit said, "Suggest she do the same with her nose." When I imparted this to her, she got to work on her own. I forgot about it until one day, while she was in hypnosis, I thought I saw a shadow nose superimposed over her real nose. I rubbed my eyes and it disappeared. After she left, she said goodbye to Dr. Hugh, who said to me after she left, "What's with the second nose on her face?" He'd seen it too. I watched her nose like a hawk after that and watched it change week by week. When she had a new nose, I asked what she'd done, and here is what she said. I put up a picture on my bathroom mirror of the nose that I wanted. I would stand there 10 to 15 minutes a day talking to my nose. I would shine a flashlight on the nose I wanted, and then I would shine it on my own nose and say things like, "See, here? There is a bump. I don't want a bump here. I want it to look like that right there." Then I would shine the light on the nose that I wanted again. Then I would shine the light on my own nose and imagine the bump going down and disappearing. I did this until the bump was gone. It took a few weeks. Then I would work on another part, like the tip. Mine was too wide and flat. I wanted it to be more sculptured and pointy. I asked her how she'd ever found the patience to continue before the first sign that it was working. She said that she started with the bump and had a mental image one day of an angel kissing the bump on her nose. "That's when I knew it was going to work," she said. This woman also grew and slenderized her fingers with suggestion and mental imagery. I dearly wish we had a picture of the first day she came. She was frumpy, overweight, walking with a cane. And the last day she came, she truly did not look like the same person at all. She was a picture of confidence, standing proud and slim. She lost 50 pounds over the course of her healing in stiletto heels, with a new nose and longer fingers on her well-manicured hands. She was ready to start life over, and she looked and felt terrific. Could she have done it all alone with mental imagery? No. She tried. She was the one who needed to get rid of the self-hate, shame, and rage she had held inside of her for the mental imagery to work. But mental imagery was definitely a big part of what she accomplished. It does work.